As we're all getting settled this morning, and people are still coming in because of the fog and the hills around the Ozark Mountains, I want to introduce Cody Matthews. Where's Cody? Cody, come on up. Cody Matthews is a district manager for McDonald's, and Cody is here with some of his team from the Harrison Main Street store. And if you're not here, you're bad, because everybody has joined something brand new. Cody, tell us what it is.
Thank you, boss. Appreciate it. Thank you for letting us come out here today. I brought my general manager, Dawn Hedrick, so she's in charge of the Main Street location. We brought out our new baked goods line items, so cinnamon rolls, apple fritters, and blueberry muffins. You should be able to get them nationwide now, and they're just going to be available all day long. So come on out and get a try.
Thank you very much. This is a compliment to McDonald's. We're here this morning to have an opportunity to engage with our elected national and state leadership. And we're here thanks to the generosity of North Arkansas College. So Dr. Esters, would you come up and welcome the group, please?
Good morning. Thanks to everybody for getting up early and coming out this morning to the college. We hope that you're noticing, if you've been here before, we've kind of sprucing this room up. We've painted. We're going to get the blinds fixed, because this seems to be the main meeting place for the city. So we're going to spruce this place up, and you can be proud of your college once again. I'm going to steal a little bit of time this morning to talk briefly about the newest project that we're working on. There's a Center for Manufacturing and Automation. We'll be rolling this project out very soon to the public with the funding streams and how we try to fund it, what it looks like, all of those things. In essence, though, we have world-class technology, robots, automation, CNC machines. We have some of the best in the world, the most modern in the world, what you see when you go to the workplace, and they're housed in the building over on North Campus that was built in the 60s. So the outside of the building doesn't match the inside. What we think that we need to do, or what we want to do, is to build a facility that the outside matches the inside, where the outside looks modern, the inside ties computers, information technology, all of the digital world that we all live in today, with manufacturing, with the machines that turn and mold and do all of the things that make the items that we use every day. We have some manufacturing industries right here in Harrison that's on the cutting edge, places like Pace, even Tyson uses a lot of manufacturing. Yet the college has not necessarily kept up with the image that industry has. Manufacturing is no longer dirty hands where you walk in and you walk in clean and you walk out full of smoke and all of that stuff. Manufacturing now is you're pushing buttons, everything is digitally controlled. And the college wants to make sure that we're keeping up with what's going on in the outside world. So this morning when I walked in, these were on my chair, so if you look over here, this is what we're envisioning the building to look like. It's going to sit up here by the greenhouse on the hill. It's going to be a 2-story building, around 30,000 square feet. It's going to house manufacturing, advanced manufacturing, automation, information technology, and several other related programs like electronics. So with that, I'll yield the podium to Bob Larkin.
Thanks very much, Dr. Esters. Again, we're here, Gratis of North Arkansas College, to allow our elected leadership on the national and state level to engage with you. And this is an opportunity, as I sent a note to him several weeks ago, to put them on the spot. You guys have to ask the hard questions. We've got our Boone County Leadership Institute and the Youth Leadership Academy participants with us this morning. This is going to be informal. Informal from the standpoint, a few opening remarks. And joining us today, we have Congressman Steve Womack from home in right? You're at home, correct? Okay.
Yes, that would be
Yeah.
correct as I
Okay.
unmute.
Okay, that's good. Thanks very much for being with us this morning. And then we have Representative Jack Fortner, who is with us this morning up here. And on the video as well, on mic, is Representative Ron McNair. And we have two others that are going to be with us, Senator Scott Flippo and Senator Breanne Davis. Both are on the way, running a little late due to the fog. But we don't want to delay this. We want to get you engaged with your elected leaders to learn what's important to them and have them learn what's important to you. So I'm going to ask Congressman Womack to make some opening remarks. Steve, tell us what's on your mind and what these folks should hear here in Harrison about what's going on in D.C.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you. And let me just say here at the outset, I assume, put your hand up if you can hear me okay. I just want to make sure that we're being, okay, good, good. At the outset, I just want to say thanks to Boone County, to Harrison, to Marion County, Yellville Flippin, and points in between, all the way to Carroll County, down to Newton County, that little sliver of Searcy County that I have at Pendle. I want to just thank you for the overwhelming support you've given me in the time that I've been in Congress. When you look at when you look at election results every 2 years and you see my results and you break it down by county, I tell you, I continue to be honored and proud beyond words with the support that I get over in the more rural areas of my county. And I try to be over there a lot. I was just over there earlier this week speaking to the GOP event over at Western Sizzlin. So you see me a lot over there, and you should. Your congressman should be paying attention to every corner of his or her district. You asked me about what's going on in Washington. You know, I've been home campaigning since, because we're on the ballot, since about 3 or 4 weeks ago when we took our last vote. And so there's not a lot going on in Washington, as evidenced by the fact that there is a real impasse on another COVID package that we would like to see move through the Congress and be signed into law. And I'll come back to that here in just a minute. We have a lot of very important things that our country kind of takes its eye off of when you're in the middle of a heated campaign like we are right now. And after Tuesday, I hope, I pray that our Congress will get back to work and doing the business of the American people, because there are a lot of pending things right now that need to be addressed, not the least of which, on top of COVID, is the fact that we've only got your government funded through the 11th day of December. Now, I want you to think about that. Let that kind of marinate in your mind a moment. The greatest country on the planet, the most incredible economic power, military power, etc., on the planet. And as we've begun our fiscal year, so our fiscal year started October 1st, and yet we've only got a budget or appropriations to fund it through the 11th day of December. So we got a lot of work to do to try to give some certainty, because the last thing we want to do, like we did 2 years ago, is see a government shutdown go beyond the election and into the first of the next year. But there's, COVID's on everybody's mind right now. I mean, all you got to do is look at the audience as I see you right now. Look at you. You're distanced. Many of you are wearing masks, even in the setting you're in right now, socially distanced. You are having to behave in a manner that is quite different than we do normally. And so COVID has been the issue for 2020, for most all of 2020. And how are we going to continue to respond to the true needs of our people when we have these political divisions going on in Washington and we can't kick out important relief programs to benefit people? And look, it comes in a lot of different ways. It comes in potential stimulus checks for people that are unemployed, PPP program money that we still have sitting in the bank right now, but it's expired, and that's for the businesses to be able to keep people on the payroll. issues like what do we do to service the tremendous hardship going on with our rural hospitals. And nobody needs to tell the people in this room that you've got a rural hospital right there in Harrison that has been impacted pretty heavily. And we need to be able to provide relief so that those hospitals do not become shortchanged in the process. And a whole host of other issues related to COVID. How are we going to continue to operate and drive our economy while at the same time keeping our people safe? And that's a real difficult sweet spot to try to find in the decision-making matrix. None of this is going to happen, though, until we get past Tuesday. And sadly, this whole month has been dominated by the fact that we've got a campaign going on at every level. And this is what we do every 4 years. We elect a president, we choose a chief executive for our country, and we put our members of Congress on the ballot and then make our decisions on Tuesday and then drive forward from there. I'm sure you're going to have questions about that. Let me just say a real quick word about the COVID package and where it stands right now. I'm very disappointed that we haven't been able to see something come through, but here's why. And I want everybody in there to know, those of you that know me know that I'm not just a party hack. I'm not somebody that just drives my stake in the ground on the GOP orthodoxy and says, I'm not going to bend, I'm not going to negotiate, I'm not going to compromise. Look, I go to Congress knowing that every day I've got to work with people who think differently than I think. Even in my own district, I have to deal with people who think differently than people in Boone County think. And I got to find I've got to find I call it the sweet spot. I got to find that very elusive area in between two different competing schools of thought to be able to make decisions. So as it regards the COVID package, this is my concern. It has been weaponized by the leader of the majority party in the House, and that's not us. That's the Democrat Party under Speaker Pelosi. And in that we call it the Heroes Package, in that Heroes Package, which is really CARES 2.0, are a whole lot of things that have nothing to do with COVID. And this is what gripes me as a legislator. We've got people hurting in our country that desperately need help. And we've got business and industry and healthcare providers that need our help. And yet the package that we lined up in the House had a whole lot of things totally unrelated. Here's a couple of examples, and there are many. You guys tell me how lifting the cap on the state and local tax deduction, what we affectionately call the SALT cap, state and local taxes, which was part of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. We put a cap on how much state and local taxes can be deducted on your taxes. And it had a major impact on very wealthy people that pay a lot of state and local taxes in very heavily taxed states like New York, New Jersey, California, and so on. So you tell me how lifting the cap, which is part of the Heroes Package, has anything to do with COVID, but it's in there. You tell me how bailing out the multi-employer pension problem that we have going on, and it's a multi-billion-dollar deficit that what we call the multi-employer pensions have in our country, been raging for years. You tell me how that has anything to do with COVID. You tell me how bailing out the fiscal condition of the United States Postal Service has anything to do with COVID. And I mean, I can go on and on and on. Here's what you need to know about how Washington works. And I believe it's why there are so many cynical people of their federal government, is that every time we have a crisis and we need to act, and there is, I call these a train leaving the station. That means a piece of legislation that you know you got to pass and move on and get signed into law and put it to work. A must-pass piece of legislation like a COVID package always seems to attract a whole lot of junk to it because they know that's the only train leaving the station, and everybody with an agenda wants to put their stuff on that bill. And Speaker Pelosi's done that with the HEROES package. Now, one anecdotal piece of the COVID relief that I think illustrates my point. When we did, in the original HEROES package, we put something called the PPP program in it. That is the Paycheck Protection Program. It was designed knowing that we're entering a pandemic phase and people are going to have trouble keeping their doors open and keeping their people hired. We gave money to business that it came out as a grant and or came out as a loan and is going to result in being a forgivable loan or a grant so that you could keep your people on the payroll, even without business. Keep people on the payroll. We knew that was going to be important. Very successful, very large program. So incredibly important and so successful that we had to come back later and put more money in the program. Here's the problem. COVID's gone on longer than we thought. And while we still have the better part of $140 billion sitting in that account, the authorization for it expired in early August. So we came back and said, Madam Speaker, let's reopen this PPP program. Let's turn loose the nearly $140 billion sitting in there. Let's get it in the hands of the people who need it. And she refused to bring it to the floor. And it still today sits in the hopper in the House of Representatives. And that's money that's already been appropriated that can go out the door in a matter of minutes, literally, if we could just bring it to the floor, get it, because it's got broad bipartisan support, but it's been weaponized. And I'm going to tell you the truth as to why it's still sitting in the House hopper. Because it would have helped business. It would have helped spur economic prosperity in our community. And it would have played into the hands of the President of the United States in discussing his economic platform. And so we've weaponized way too much of what's going on in this country because we have desired political outcomes. And I say it's long past time that Congress check their political baggage at the door, get back to work, roll up their sleeves, and do the work of the American people. And we think that if that were the case, then we wouldn't be having the conversation we're having right now about, having a logjam on PPP or not having another COVID package because we're trying to take care of a lot of special agendas. So I've rambled there a little bit. I hope you can get the context for what's going on in Washington and why I feel frustrated. I am on the ballot. As some of you voted early, you've seen this. I am asking for another 2 years. I've been given the great honor of being selected as the ranking member, the lead Republican on the Financial Services and General Government Subcommittee of Appropriations, which means effectively that between me and the chairman, we write the bill that funds a whole lot of very important agencies. I can't go through all of them, but the Department of the Treasury, the IRS, the SEC, OMB, OPM, FEC, FDIC, FTC, on and on and on. I've got the Executive Office of the President, and I've also got the District of Columbia within my jurisdiction. So we are the people that will write the bill that will fund these agencies. And so I've been given this great honor. I currently rank on that subcommittee, and I will do so in the next Congress if we don't flip the majority, where I could become chairman of that committee. So with that said, Bob, thanks for the opportunity. I wish I was there with you in person so that I could double down on some of those Mickey D's delicacies that I saw people chomping on. So good luck to you. Thanks again for your support down through the years, and look forward to seeing you sometime real soon.
Thanks,
and I look forward to your questions.
Thanks very much, sir. And I'll tell you what, we're going to ask Terry Garrett. Where are you? Terry, raise your hand. She's representing you well this morning.
Glad to see she's on duty this morning.
And she promised to bring you back a blueberry muffin and an apple fritter.
That's what I'm talking about. That's a good staffer.
Okay. Terry, thanks for being here with us today. Let me introduce Senator Breanne Davis and Senator Scott Flippo, the two senators that represent our arena here in Boone County, and ask them if they'd like to make a couple of opening remarks to the group, and then we're gonna get into some questions before Congressman Womack has to leave here in about 20 minutes. So, ladies first.
Want me to
Senator
stand
Davis.
or come?
You can
Just
come here
stand.
if you like.
Okay. I normally speak pretty loud, but I'll come to the microphone. My name's Breanne Davis. I represent all of Pope County, Newton County, and then parts of Boone, Carroll, and Van Buren County. I live in Russellville. I've been in the state senate for a little over 2 years now, and before joining the senate, I served 9 years on the Russellville School Board. I'm happy to be here with you guys this morning. I think one of the issues that's real important to me, as Dr. Esther knows, is equitable higher ed funding and making sure we're educating our workforce and our Kansans across the state. So again, I'm happy to be here and look forward to taking questions and having a good conversation with you guys.
And Senator Scott
I'm just
Flippo.
gonna stand up right here because my voice really carries. My name is Scott Flippo. I live out in Home. Excuse me. My district covers Baxter, Marion, and Boone counties. And it's actually one of my favorite biennium events is to see all these, to be with you all, especially you younger people. I'm closer to your age than I am to my colleague Representative Fortner. Thank you. And so I think we got a lot we can identify with each other on. And so, but no, your government is important. The decisions that we are making and Congressman Womack is making on y'all's behalf are important decisions. And so for us to hear from you, your perspective, and to hear some of your questions, I think is very beneficial to us. So thank you very much for the opportunity to be here with you all this morning. And my apologies for running a little bit late.
Sorry, he wanted to come in and get the cinnamon rolls on you. Okay. Jack, would you like to just give some remarks here and tell us what's happening?
Well, if I got enough strength to stand up, as old as I am. Actually, you can't help being old on the outside as long as you don't get old on the inside. That's the deal. It is a pleasure to be here, and I do, as Scott said, love being with young people. It lifts my spirits. I'm encouraged that we have young people in the legislature. When I go to speak to schools, I tell the students all the time, ladies, Dalton, I've told Dalton this 100 times, there would nothing make me happier than for one of you to take my job. The reason that I do this is because there's nobody that I feel would do the job that I want done for this district. That's not ego, that's just the way I feel. And I want one of you to take my job. That's what I hope, that's my hope. So I'm looking forward to your questions. And thank you for having me. And I love these cinnamon rolls.
Sounds good. You got a winner right here. And Representative Ron McNair, you're on the call. Would you like to, if you've got your mic on, he's attending a budget committee meeting in Little Rock. So he's double dipping here. Ron, if you can hear us? He may have had to jump off to do something. So he and Keith Slape are both in Little Rock today attending meetings. So Ron, if you can hear me, and when you get a chance, just jump in. All right, this is your opportunity to talk to these four folks and ask them the hard questions. What's on your mind from the national level, from the state level, that you'd like to know about? Hey, Ron, can you hear us?
I see Ron's on mute. If
Yeah.
he can unmute,
Yeah.
if he's trying to talk, you got to go up to the upper right-hand corner and click that microphone with a line through it. He's still on mute.
Yeah, when he finds that button. So, all right, this is your opportunity to ask questions. What's important to you right now? What's on your mind?
I've got a question on Amendment 1 that we have on the ballot.
Issue one?
Yeah.
Okay, state ballot.
On continuing the tax for the roads. So I heard an interesting opinion the other day and it was, why do we continue to pay taxes, additional taxes for things that if we were to cut spending in some other areas, that money would take care of itself? So why do the working people have to pay for something that could come from another area that's just more or less wasteful spending?
Okay, issue one. Which of the three of you would like to tackle that?
I'll take the first go on it.
All right.
That's a very good question. So, first of all, there is dedicated funding categories for certain things that go to fund our highways, and that's getting disagreement or debate, whatever you would refer to it as in the legislature on how we're going to fund certain things. I've been on the side where I'm going to see revenue generated from tax on auto parts and other auto-related, items be reallocated to highways, and that makes sense. These are things that they're parts for vehicles, and to use that revenue, to go towards our highways, and that was just, that was not going to happen. I think the thing with issue one, as well for me, that I voted for it, but I voted against referring it to, put it on the ballot for you all to vote on, and I want to speak to why. So when we came to do this about 8 years ago, when this passed, they put a sunset amendment on there. What we said is that this is going to expire at the end of 10 years. And I think the thing that, big picture that I see is a loss of credibility, as the Congressman just spoke on, is people's confidence in the government. So when something comes about that you want to vote on, and they say it's going to expire, this tax will expire in 10 years, and they come back 2 years before it's going to expire, and say we need to make it permanent. Well, the thing is that it's easier to say we're not creating a new tax, we're just putting an existing one and making it permanent. So politically, it's a little bit easier for messaging. But I think it's important to let it sunset and then go back and say, hey, this is why we need this is why we need this money. Our roads need money. Let me be very clear about that. But the process that we go about doing that is very important as well, and being direct with the citizens that we represent. So.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments here?
Yeah, so for me, I was the opposite of Senator Flippo. I voted to refer it out because it was important to me that citizens of Arkansas voted on it the first time around to let it be a 10-year tax, and I thought it was important, whether or not I was for it or against it, to let Arkansans vote on it again, to let it be all of our decision, because we all made that decision the first time around. And so, like he said, it's our roads. I mean, we do need money. I do think there's a ton of waste at the highway department, just across the state. And I don't think that they manage what they have well, and they have no accountability to anybody. They are sort of by themselves over there. The legislature doesn't really have any control over them, and they can kind of do what they want, and that concerns me a great deal when you're speaking about over $1 billion in budget. So I definitely have concerns about it, but that's sort of why I voted it out of committee, just so it could be on the ballot, so everybody could have a chance to vote on it again.
Jack, your thoughts?
I voted for it to come out to be on the ballot. I thought that you all should decide. It would have been easy for me to have made it a legislative matter. I would have preferred to have us deal with it. That's our job. You voted me in to represent you. It's my job to represent you. But I was in the minority on that opinion, so I voted to let it come out and let you vote on it. I don't like it being a constitutional amendment. I would rather it come out and you vote on it to be something that is comes up on a regular basis. That being said, I support the issue. There's a couple reasons I support it, and the obvious one is that the roads need money. The other one is we have a new director at the highway department. It's a young lady. I have a great deal of faith in her, and I believe and have got assurances from her that she's going to do the very, very best that she can, and I believe she means it, to make a difference and be more accountable to us. She's told me that. I can only take her at her word, so I'm buying into that. And the other thing, that money is divided up between not just the state. You're probably all aware, because you're an informed body of people, but approximately 40% of the money from that tax goes to your city and your county. If that tax goes away, that money will go away for your cities and your counties. And I'm not justifying it, but those cities and counties rely on that money like that right now, like it's going to be there forever. It is something they budget for. They don't look at it as something that may go away. And if those funds go away in the form of that tax, it's been my experience that the municipalities and the counties will have to find another source, and that will be us, in the form of another tax. This tax, the help me if I'm wrong, I think it's approximately 132 million, or no, it's 32 million visitors come to Arkansas every year as tourists. They all buy gas. They pay tax to support our roads. And if that tax is gone, we'll support those roads, or we'll support. I'm not making this clear, but yeah, we'll be footing the bill is what I'm trying to tell you, and that's why I'm for it.
And from a federal perspective, Congressman, as you look at the economic drivers in the state of Arkansas that are so important, you have an opinion about this state issue? Besides that, you vote here.
You know, it's up to the voters of the state, and frankly, I would have voted to refer it to the people, because I think that's where the decision needs to be. It needs to be made by the people. But there's a couple of things about the issue that we all need to just be honest about. Clearly, roads, transportation infrastructure in general, to you it's roads, but to a lot of others it may be some kind of public transit opportunity in some of the more built-up areas. But transportation is a critical piece of our economic development prospect. And the couple of things I know about infrastructure is this: it's very expensive to build, likely outside the wherewithal of a city or a county to do some of the projects that we're talking about. And it's got to be paid for by somebody. But I tell you, as an appropriator and as the ranking member, former chairman of the House Budget Committee, this I know from people. They like a lot of these programs. They like highway infrastructure, and they like their favorite programs. They want somebody else to pay for it. And we need to be honest with ourselves. We all use it. Every single one of you that are gathered in that room this morning and use the highway program of our state, local county and state, to get where you are today. And we've got to figure out a way. We got to accept the fact that when you build something, you got to maintain it, and it's going to be expensive, and you have to have a dedicated revenue source to be able to do this. Now we have at the federal level, this is how, kind of misguided we are at times. The last time the federal gas tax, which is how we pay for the Highway Trust Fund, the last time that gas tax was raised at the federal level was 1993, and it wasn't indexed for inflation. So just think about that a minute. The last time we raised it was 93, not indexed to inflation. Think about the spending power of the money coming from a 1993 proposal and how much less it is because of inflation over time. And then think about how much more it costs to build roads, bridges, and the like. So we just have to accept the fact that we got to pay for it, and we need to make a decision as a body as to what the best method is. I have believed all along that gas taxes were probably the best method of user fees out there, because it's baked in the price at the pump. When you pull up and fill up your car, they don't add a tax on top of it. What you see going through that counter is exactly what you're going to pay, because that tax is baked into the price. So we got to figure out how to pay for this stuff. It's why it's why the highway trust fund's running dry, and it's why we have to supplement everything we do at the federal level with general fund money, which takes money away from other vital programs. But let's just agree that we've got a problem out there, crumbling infrastructure, that the longer you defer it, the more expensive it becomes. And we need to, I personally think we need to get away from bonding a lot of these programs, which is about the only way you can do an expensive project, and get back to more of a pay-as-you-go type program, so you can be paying for this stuff at current prices. So anyway, there we are. It's a classic case of we like it, we need it, but we're not necessarily anxious to pay for it. And you got to decide whether or not it's worthwhile to pay for. And I'll say the same thing about rural broadband, which is as important probably to the future economic development programs of a rural area than even highways are. And that's how do we get this fiber and these other products into the rural areas where it's very costly to in place and very expensive, but vital to telehealth, remote education, those kinds of things. We just got to decide, hey, it's important, we need to pay for it. So it's a classic case.
That's fair. Let me just add on, I can't remember who mentioned it here, but in Boone County, some data, Boone County, without this tax, will lose $989,000 a year, almost $1 million a year, to take care of Boone County roads. Now that includes each municipality. The city of Harrison stands to lose about $375,000, I believe. Each of the communities, Alpena, Lead Hill, Omaha, they all will lose that money. Where are they going to buy gravel? Where are they going to put put gravel on Boone County roads, for instance? The judge has made the comment that the budget for gravel in Boone County is $325,000 a year. That's how much gravel they use. So without this, it's a problem. I will tell everyone, or remind you, the Chamber of Commerce, as an economic development organization here, strongly supports the passage of Issue 1 for pure economic development reasons. We are a mini transportation hub in north central Arkansas. Those trucks need improved roads. And I want to go back to the comment that was made up here. Everybody that drives in the state of Arkansas pays for that. It's not just us. So I think that's important. Let's let the people that use the road pay for it. So good discussion, good question.
I have a question. Oh, can you hear me, Bob? Yeah. I have a question. It's kind of concerning taxes and along the same line. But a couple years ago, Arkansas State voted to increase the minimum wage from $10 to $12. And what that essentially did, as you guys probably are aware, it took a lot of county and state employees from above minimum wage at $10, $50, $11 and now put them to minimum wage. But it also wreaked havoc on local budgets, like school budgets, specifically. A lot of non-certifieds were making $10, $50, $11. Now they have been increased, but the funding hasn't been increased from the state for the local schools. So a lot of local governments or local school boards have to look at raising millages to support that on a local level. I'm of the opinion that the state made that decision. Maybe that money should come from the state rather than from the local locations. I just would like your opinion on it. Is the state doing anything on that? And
We didn't know when we made that decision. I mean, honestly,
We actually, in all truthfulness, we referred that to the people, and the people voted on it.
Right, the people voted to increase the state voted to increase the
And the
minimum wage,
legislature,
right?
there was some, Scott, there is, we voted to fund the first year of those salary increases. We helped the school districts with that funding. And there is proposed legislation to extend that help into the next period.
So the question is about the minimum wage in Arkansas being raised to $12 and what, how are, for instance, school districts going to pay for that increased required wage that was voted on 3 years ago, I think, or 4 years ago. And Representative Fortner has indicated that there is legislation, correct? Legislation that will perhaps reimburse schools for that increase?
So I just want to be clear, I'm sorry, and a little confusion on my end. Are we talking about, there was a citizen-led initiative to increase the minimum wage that was not referred to by the legislature, and that thing went to $11 an hour. See, this is one of those rare opportunities when your elected official does not have every answer. And so, I think 2 years ago, there was an amendment on the ballot to, raise the minimum wage to $11 an hour, and that was over a 3-year period, kind of stair-stepping it up, up into 2021 will be at $11 an hour. That was not an initiative that was referred by the legislature. That was something that came from the citizens and to gather the signatures to get it on the ballot. And so we fund certain things in education. Education is it's a constitutional priority that we are obligated per our Constitution to fund that off the top. Our sales and income tax collections combined is going to derive about $5.8 billion. K through 12 is going to take the vast majority of that. I know you're speaking about ASU Jonesboro and a higher ed institution. We allocate money to help pay for teacher salaries. But oftentimes the school districts, they have the flexibility on how they're going to spend this money, and they can use it for other capital expenditures if they got to replace an HVAC unit or a roof or do something else. And so sometimes money is allocated by the legislature to assist with, what our intent is to go for salaries. But districts have the flexibility, and if you've got a crumbling roof, you might have to make a decision to say, well, this is a higher priority because we can't have school if this roof caves in. And I don't think I'm probably, getting to the heart of your question, but I guess there's a confusion on my end on the minimum wage and what we're talking about. We're talking about something specifically for teachers in our higher ed institutions, or minimum wage increase across the board for all of Arkansas?
Well, so to clarify what I was saying the people of, the state increased it, right? So not necessarily the state government, but the state as a whole, the people voted to increase it. But it has affected
Sure.
all local budgets, right?
Good, and that's fair.
Road budgets or.
So that was the same thing for our Medicaid providers. If you're a CNA in a nursing home, if somebody was making $11 an hour before this went into effect, now they're gonna make 13, because you're gonna bring in your new hire, and they're gonna be making 11, and you can't have somebody that's been with you for a year and a half, 2 years, making the same as the person you just hired last week. So it doesn't just raise the minimum wage, it raises everybody that was making that and bumps them up as well. And so when you raise the minimum wage, they didn't vote to raise the revenues for the state. And that's the conundrum that we get in, is that you can increase expenses without allocating revenues, as the Congressman was just saying, for highways example. The reason it's important not to use bonds to pay for our highways is because 30+% of it just goes to pay the interest on the bond. That's not money that's getting allocated to actually build the road, to resurface a road. It's just going to pay the interest. And so if we don't have a dedicated funding source to pay for that, that often is the only mechanism available to take on these big, $50, $100 million plus projects, is to do a bond. And so as you raise the minimum wage, there was nothing in there that said, we're gonna have this mechanism to increase revenues to the state so they can help, schools, K through 12, higher ed, Medicaid providers, and all these other entities offset just the additional cost of doing business. And so, these are good conversations and honest conversations that we need to be more engaged in as citizens and as elected officials, to really talk about the nuts and bolts of these issues, because they might not be overly glamorous or interesting, but they are important.
And I have to apologize to you.
Let me weigh in on minimum wage, because there's a lot of discussion going on in the federal government right now. You'll see a lot of people running for office today in Congress, to include, to be clear, to include my Democrat opponent, who is outspoken about wanting a $15 minimum wage. And I believe in the markets, in dictating a lot of things. So without getting into the nitty gritty about the purpose of a minimum wage, let's just understand, and Scott just mentioned it a minute ago, It's not just about the wages. We're talking about paying the entry-level worker. There's a cascading effect that happens. Scott's absolutely right. You're not going to elevate a brand new hire and put them at $11 beginning on January 1st of 2021 and have a person making $11 an hour that's been with you a year or 2 years on January 1st to be paid equally. That's just not fair. So everything cascades from that base amount. And frankly, I believe you got to be very careful that we do not throw the baby out with the bathwater on minimum wage issues, where we feel good about the fact that we're going to pay people more money, they're going to have more in their paychecks. But some of those folks aren't going to have jobs, because we're going to price a whole lot of small business, particularly, and big business that hires at that entry-level wage. We're going to force them to look at other mechanisms because the input factors on pay are going to make it impossible for them to continue their business models, and they're going to look to automate and do other things. It's going to take jobs away from other people. So I think you got to be really careful. I support a federal minimum wage at a very, very reasonable level, so that we don't get into a situation where we're taking advantage of people in high stress areas. But I think you got to be careful where you put that base amount so that you don't cost yourself a whole lot of jobs and opportunity for people that need that entry level work in order to begin their jobs and their careers. So these are critical issues, and they deserve a lot of deep thought. But Scott's right, this was a phased in approach, and I think it's that last phase begins on January 1, 2021 when it goes to $11 an hour.
We've got Representative Ron McNair on the phone. Ron, do you want to tackle this last issue with minimum wage?
I show that he's still muted.
Yeah.
No, hello.
There he
There
is.
he is. You got it.
Yeah, sorry, this technology and virtual meetings don't work very well. But, and we're running a skeleton crew down here, but I did catch part of the conversations. Of course, my thoughts on minimum wage is the same thing that's already been spoken. I think everybody, needs to be paid for what they do, but you have to be careful. I know when I had employees, you start paying them more, and which may be, they may be worth it, and you need to do that, but in reality, you're going to have to start charging more for your product. Excuse me, my breath had to come out of the room. But I think the more that we raise it, the price of everything that we purchase is going to go up. So we do have to look at it realistically. The other thing, I caught part of the issue 1, and of course I did vote to send that out to the people, but a lot of my conversations on that has been people, they say that they're against taking a temporary tax and making it permanent. But we also have to realize highway maintenance and infrastructure is permanent. So we have to look at that. That's the reason I did that. I think I've been down here 6 years. That's been one of the subjects every session. We've tried to figure out some way to do it, but it does take money. And so that's the reason I was supportive of issue 1. I think we've got to have it to maintain our roads and to build our economy. I didn't catch much of the conversation. I'm sorry. It's kind of choppy on this end.
No, that's very good. You covered the 2 issues that are most important, and we've got your input on them. And I'm ready to ask for another question here.
Could I make?
Please do.
I misunderstood what you asked. We didn't give funds to help with minimum wage increases. We gave funds to help the schools increase teachers, that mandatory increase in teacher salary. I misspoke, and I don't want you to think that.
Yeah,
So
I
that-
stand corrected also on the $11. It was almost $2 increase, and I was.
That's why conversations are important, so we can kind of, get past that, those little glitches and.
All of the, and all of those things happen. Don't worry, it's not rocket science, but it really is, because there's so many different pieces to it. Next question. We've got about 5 minutes before Congressman Womack has to step out. Jim?
Yeah, if Congressman Womack would maybe get his crystal ball out from a Washington perspective and walk us through kind of the different options as far as after the election, maybe end of the year, what some of the legislation might look like, depending kind of on what happened.
Steve, the question to you was,
Yeah, I got the question.
Okay, good,
I got
good.
the question.
All right.
In order for me to accurately and appropriately answer the gentleman's question, I would have to know what the outcome on Tuesday is, and I certainly don't have that. I don't have a crystal ball with that kind of power. But there's I look, I kind of stay in my lane. We got to fund the government after the 11th day of December. So when we go back in what we call a lame duck session, that is the 116th Congress is going to end, the 117th Congress is going to begin, and there could be a brand new president inaugurated in January, and the whole balance of power could change. So there are too many unknowns right now. Does Donald Trump get reelected? If so, do the Democrats take the Senate? Or does the GOP still have the presidency in the Senate? Do we take back the House? Or a combination therein? I've made a prediction that if you want to hear it, I'll tell you. I don't know what's going to happen in the presidential race. I think it's a lot like 2016, where you really can't trust the polls. I think it's a lot closer than the media would like for you to believe it is. And if you ask the discerning voter in Boone County, Arkansas, Donald Trump's going to win in a landslide. I mean, I've heard that from my friends over there. And he's got great support in the state of Arkansas, about 65% in the last poll that came out this week. But look, I think the real attention is going to be focused on the Senate. And I do believe that we're going to win, that GOP, I say we, GOP is going to win that Alabama seat. It's going to be 54-46. Then I think you've got Arizona and Colorado that are very problematic right now. It could be 52-48. And then I think there's 3 or 4 seats hanging out there that are really up for grabs. Montana for sure, Iowa for sure, Maine for sure, North Carolina for sure. Might even throw Kansas in there, although I think Kansas is pretty safe on the Republican side as I see it. And you might even throw Lindsey Graham's seat in South Carolina in there. But again, I think Lindsey wins that. So take those other 4, Montana, Iowa, Maine, North Carolina. If you split those, now where are you? 50-49 on election night. The unresolved decision is the special election in Georgia, where you got 2 Senate races going on. You got the regular race for David Perdue's seat, but you've also got that special election for the seat that Kelly Loeffler got appointed to, and that won't be known. The decision on that seat will not be known until the night of January 5th, when they have a runoff, because you got 2 Republicans and a Democrat competing, and none of them have the numbers to win it outright. So we indeed, as a country, could be in a situation where we know who our president's going to be, and we know who's going to lead the House of Representatives, but the Senate may be in question all the way to early January. Now, as you let that marinate a little bit, understand that if that's the case, that would make the Georgia Senate race between the general election and the special on January 5th the most expensive, the most contentious, and the most talked about political race probably in the history of our nation. I mean, it's that critical. So we'll see. Now, back to legislation. I think we'll get a COVID package done in the lame duck session. I think the reasonable minds will come together and say, hey, we got to help people. I'm not sure what it'll look like. I'm not sure if it's going to have that $600 of unemployment insurance in it, or if it's going to have liability protections for small business. Those are my 2 red lines. It can't do the 600 UI because that's incentivizing people not to work. and it's got to have some liability protection for business, because you can't have a business get back to work and somebody in their team become infected and then open yourself up for a lawsuit. You can't do that. So those are the two things that I'm looking for in the package. And as I said earlier, we got to fund the government after December the 11th. So all of that could be wrapped into it, and we could do one big kick it to the curb kind of package for the lame duck session and go from there. Honestly, I don't know what it's going to look like. Let's let Tuesday happen, and then I will see how things begin to take shape in the week following.
Great insight, sir. I know you've got to run off to another meeting, but we appreciate you spending time with us this morning. And I don't know if you can see this, but I'm wearing Team Womack glasses. I
love
don't
it.
see that
I
on
love
yours,
it.
though. You need to have a set of these on.
Again, let me just say thank you to everybody over there. You guys are, you're out there doing what you do every day. You don't wake up every morning with the issues of the federal government on your brain like I have to. And we just want to make it possible for you guys to go about your routines with the least resistance possible from your federal government. We'd love to be able to keep your taxes low, keep the regulations, keep the boot of regulations off your neck, just give you an honest opportunity to go out and pursue that American dream as all of you do. God bless you. Thanks for the opportunity to be here with you today, and hope to see you real soon,
Thanks
shortly
so much
after the
for joining
election.
us. Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
Okay, now we can get down to the nitty-gritty, some would say. So let's have some hard questions for Little Rock and our representatives down there.
I'd like to hear one from some of these young people, especially these girls that's been staring at me.
Aha. All right.
Ladies, fire your questions to Jack Fortner.
Yeah, don't ask Scott. No questions?
I don't know if they'd be very hard.
All right, ask a question. That's all right.
I'll take that one.
Okay, how long do you serve for?
The House representative is for 2 years, and we're up for election every 2. You'll see my name on the ballot. I'm unopposed. These young individuals serve for 4, and then there is an overlap where they could periodically run for 2, right?
Next year, we'll all be on the whole Senate will be on the, ballot, and then we will draw, half will get a 2-year term, the other half will get a 4-year to make sure that the entire Senate doesn't turn over at the same time, so you kind of stagger your elections. Because the Senate is obviously the government chamber of your government, state and local level.
Oh, Lord. You know what?
I think a high premium to make sure that we all don't turn over at the same time is very important for the well-being of the citizens of our state.
You know what they're referred to down in Little Rock? The dark side.
The Senate is the dark side in Little Rock. You heard that from Representative Jack Fortner. And I think,
Yeah, I haven't heard that either, right now.
Yeah, because we keep it a secret.
Yeah.
all right, 2 years for state representative, 4 years for state senator, and Jack, you're running unopposed this time.
I am.
So are you asking these young folks to step up and run in two more years against you?
I wish you would.
All right, there you go.
No, and I'm serious. There comes a point where it's time to let somebody else do it. And I was done when I took this job. I was successful and content with what I was and where I was. And I was asked to do this to fill a need. And this is going to be 5 years coming up because I took a half a term to start. And I would love for one of you young people, or any of you that feel qualified. My district encompasses the large land mass of Boone. So there, I don't know where you all live, and in Olive area, a part of Baxter, a little bit of Searcy. So if you fall in there, you talk to me. And I'll tell you what it'll take. It'll take educating yourself, I'll tell you that. And you have to be open-minded, and you have to have knowledge on a lot of subjects, a little bit. You have to be personable, you have to be flexible, and real good looking.
And we don't know how he got elected, but no.
That's my wife, that's my wife.
That's true, that's true. No, I think that the folks in the room were issued a challenge, not necessarily in the first 2 or 3 rows, but I heard that as a challenge to everyone in the room. Love to see that happen. Melissa, you got a question?
Yeah, I was gonna ask for one of you to speak to issue 3 and just give us some of your opinions on that. As I've moved about the community, I've heard opinions on both sides of whether to vote for it or to vote against it. And I know that there are a lot of pros and cons to it, and I wonder if there are some unintended consequences if it were to pass. That maybe it sounds like a really good idea, but then there would be some consequences that we might not have intended to happen with how our issues come to our ballots.
Phenomenal question. Issue 3 is probably the most complicated issue and there's 3 that are on the ballot, and all 3 were issues that were referred by the legislature, which automatically makes them suspect to a lot of our citizens. And what issue 3 does in a nutshell is it is going to make it more difficult to change our Constitution. Now, do not hold my feet to the fire, but I believe that Arkansas was one of 15, maybe 16 states that allows for a mechanism for citizen-led initiatives, to gather signatures, to get something on the ballot for people to vote on, to put to change our Constitution. I don't inherently think that is a bad thing. And first of all, let me say this, that I voted to refer Amendment 3 and put that on the ballot. And I voted for it. And I'll tell you why. So, what I see in Little Rock is when I say citizen-led initiatives, I always want to use the quotations when I say citizens, because what it is it's some well-financed entities and interests out of state that are pouring gobs of money into Arkansas to get high-powered attorneys to craft language to gather signatures to put on the ballot, and they do so because they or their clients stand to financially benefit from whatever the issue that we're getting ready to change. And so it's not like it's just citizens that get together in the garage one night and say, hey, we need to change this. Let's you and I and 50 of our closest friends take the next 2.5 years and start gathering signatures and go across the state and get this changed. It's not how it works. And so it will raise the threshold, and this is why it's complicated, because nobody here could probably even speak to what are the steps and the processes necessary for the requirements of gathering signatures, how wide an area do you have to go through. So we're changing things, Amendment 3 is changing things that most people are not even aware of to begin with, which is why it's confusing. But briefly, it is going to take, you've got to collect X amount of signatures, like in a 15 county radius, and this is going to extend it to 45 counties. It's going to make it more difficult. If you're going to challenge, the Secretary of State says there's, something's not right here, and you decide to challenge it, it's going to set the deadline to contest that decision at April 15th. And so this also makes it more difficult raises the bar for the legislature to refer things to the people to vote on, which is also a good thing. Because right now, as it stands, it takes a simple majority in the Senate and the House to refer something to the citizens. So that's 18 votes in the Senate and 51 in the House. And there have been times the legislature has referred some kind of questionable and maybe even some might say deceptive things for the voters to vote on. And I'll give you a good example. 2014, there was a ballot initiative that passed that it called to establish term limits in Arkansas and and establish ethics reforms. Heck, who doesn't support that? Term limits and reforms in ethics. Lobbyists can't buy politicians dinners and take them to ball games. I'm okay with that. Well, what it also did, and it said it's going to create an independent citizens commission to set the legislative and constitutional and judicial salaries. So we don't get to vote for our own raises, which we never did, or they never did. I wasn't there at the time because politically suicide to vote yourself to give yourself a raise. So the author of this got creative, and so they put it on the ballot, and it passed. And what people found out a couple years down the road is that it extended term limits, and it gave a lot of elected officials raises, and it did it under the guise of ethics reform. And so, this is why it's important to raise that threshold. because changing your state's constitution is very serious business. And that should be a high threshold, both at the legislative level and at the citizen level as far as gathering signatures, which it's, again, it's not, Melissa, it's not just your average citizen doing this. This is high-powered, well-financed interests that are spearheading this. And so I'm trying to simplify it, and there's a little bit, but that's the nuts of what it, of what it will do. And I personally think it is a good idea. Again, we're one of 16 states that actually has a mechanism that allows for that.
And no one can give an example of a citizen-led ballot initiative. That's the thing, like,
Yeah.
I don't know any in decades. And so that is the issue.
Because the special interest groups are the ones that bring them. to
Yeah,
our
it's
state.
just, it's so expensive to do. It's millions of dollars. And that's why people can so easily come from out of state, pay people to collect signatures, and they only have to hit 15 counties and get a certain percentage of signatures from those counties. And, I mean, for me, I think if it's, if the people in Arkansas want it, or it's something that, citizens feel strongly about, then you should have to collect signatures from 45 counties, a certain percentage. I mean, if you're talking about Arkansas, you shouldn't be able to just go to Benton, Washington, and Pulaski County and get most of your signatures. And that's what's happening. And I feel it very personally because 2 years ago in Polk County, we were put on a constitutional amendment for us to have a casino in Polk County, and it's torn.
Sounds big.
Yeah, you guys were 2 years before that, I think, and I mean, that got voted down, thankfully, because people said, hey, we shouldn't be making decisions for Boone County. But the ballot initiative passed with Polk County listed with nobody came and asked us about it. But because interest groups from out of state had the money to fund it, they were able to get it to pass, and it's torn our community apart. I mean, it's been the most horrible 2 years, and I don't know what our future will look like. But we voted on something to make a decision for a specific county that is now listed in our Constitution. It also says you can serve liquor 24/7, 365. And that's fine, like that's what casinos do, but it's in our state constitution. Like, why? We've had over 100 changes to our state constitution. I just think it should be a more sacred document than that, and if we're gonna change it, we need to have a higher standard.
Breanne, can you just briefly speak to, I'm sorry, Jack, is because there's a very important thing that you left out there so when they passed that casino amendment, it said it has to have local approval. And that was the county judge and the mayor. How did that happen in Russellville? In Polk County? Tell them speak to kind of the.
Literally our outgoing county judge and outgoing mayor,
last day?
stroke at midnight, it was like the day before, they finished their terms, wrote a letter, giving support for a casino group. And so it was just so underhanded and took everybody by surprise. And that started a legal battle that has continued. I mean, that was at the end of 2017, or 2018, I'm sorry. And we've just been in legal battle after legal battle. It's been real hard, so.
So they'll say things like, it's contingent upon local support. It's not everybody in the state, if the local people don't want it, then, and it sounds good. And it fools people into thinking that, yes, local people can, will get the final say-so. And come to find out, no, it can be your outgoing mayor and your outgoing judge at the stroke of midnight that sign their name on a dotted line and tie the incoming administrations for eternity to that. And it's not fair, and it's not right.
I asked that question mainly because I wanted our youth leadership that's in the room, I wanted them to understand maybe that in a little more in depth about the
That's a
Constitution.
very important question.
And I'll just make it just much, very, 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 very plain. Do you think that the people of Arkansas, without millions, literally millions and millions of dollars of TV ads and publicity, would have ever voted, the people of Arkansas, voted for legalized gambling in Arkansas? Do you believe that? Do you believe that was the will of the majority of the people in Arkansas? Or was it the will of people that had money that wanted to come in here and establish gaming on our fringes for a monetary gain? It wasn't for the good of the people, but they convinced enough people by money, with words, to pass that. And it's in the Constitution, and the Constitution, that's the document, that, like the US Constitution, it's only been amended 20, Breanne, help me, you're young.
Your Honor, it's been over 100 times, about 100 times, in the course of our.
Yeah, our Constitution has been amended like, I think it's 3 times more than the US Constitution.
How about Representative McNair, opinion on issue 3?
Well, I'm pretty sure I agree with Senator Flippo. I couldn't hear him very well, but there's always potential unintended consequences. Hopefully that doesn't come to fruition because I voted for it also. But that's the reason, and I know there's arguments that, well, you're just making it harder for the people of Arkansas, and special interests will still bring money in. That may happen, but it is still going to make it harder for them to do it. And it does need, it's not that we tried to keep it from happening, but it's got to be more difficult to keep changing every election cycle. That's the reason I voted to send it out to the people, and that's the reason I voted for it myself.
Okay, question in the back of the room, Scott Miller.
Bob, still on this initiative 3, did the minimum wage initiative a few years ago, did it have origins outside, like we're talking about?
The question is,
and
did
the
the
follow-up would be, would this make things like that harder?
Yes, sir.
So the question was, the minimum wage that was passed in Arkansas, was that initiated by an outside group outside of the state of Arkansas? And the answer is, yes, it was. And issue 3, if passed, would prohibit that outside group from initiating
It wouldn't
that
prohibit
amendment.
it, it would make it more.
It would make it more
It
difficult.
would also
Correct.
make it more difficult for legislative referred initiatives, which our Constitution allows, where we can refer up to 3 every 2 years. And so there's been a number, and I forget, but I went back and looked and to see all the votes over all the legislative referred initiatives, and to see what the vote count was when those passed through the legislature. And, I think it's like 10 or 12, if not more, that wouldn't have ever made it on the, made it out of the legislature had we increased the threshold to, a 2/3, majority instead of a simple majority. And so it raises it for both levels, the legislature and citizens, AKA big money out of state interests.
There you go.
Which I think is fair.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, sir.
Earlier, each of you mentioned, earlier, each of you mentioned issues that you voted on to either put before or not put before the citizens of Arkansas. What would be the reason to not put all the issues before the citizens of Arkansas if it affects the citizens of Arkansas?
So the question is, why not put every issue that affects all the citizens of Arkansas before a vote of everyone?
Well, we're only allowed to refer out 3 things per session. So we're limited in what we can refer out to even have on the ballot.
Were you asking why would we vote no?
So, well, if you have, let's say you have 7 issues, right? And you can only put 3 before the people of the state. Why is it only 3 if all 7 would affect the?
So the other 4 don't even get to go on, so we can only, only 3 will be voted on by the citizens per our Constitution. So the other 4, they won't affect the people because they'll never be on the ballot for anybody to vote on.
They just die.
Yeah, they'll
they
just
just
die,
go
yeah.
away. Yeah.
So, okay, so the state and the Senate don't have the ability to vote without the consent of the mayor, the people.
We have the ability to, to refer something, to put it on the ballot for you all to vote on. For
Right.
every citizen of the state to be able to vote on, but we are limited to 3 every 2 years.
3 every 2 years when the legislature is actually in session. They are not in session in 2020. They have committee meetings. So the legislature, what is it, January 9th, I think?
Something like that.
They go into, and you can refer 3 issues to the voters all next year. Okay, Jack?
And see, that is the option, that is an option, but the real option, our real job, the issues. We make laws that affect you on issues. We just come together as a group, and we vote it into law. We don't do it with a constitutional amendment or go any further. That's what we're down there to do, is to make the laws and spend the money. So most of what we do it in the form of laws. And that affects you just as much as, you understand what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
There's
So
another-
that's why you need to be careful who you vote for, who you send down there, because we are making the law. When I go and speak at high schools, I say, you know what I do? I make the laws that govern your life every day, and I spend every cent of the tax you pay. Now, you want to be a little more careful about who you pick to go down there?
Pretty sage advice.
Because that's what we do. That is what we do.
We have another question from Craig Campbell. Craig?
Yes, thanks, Bob. I'd like to go back to the minimum wage. And part of my question has to do with workforce development. Minimum wage is obviously a vital part for small businesses. Even in my office, I have a position that's only warranted for minimum wage. But I think one of the biggest issues that we face as a state is obviously people need more money. Minimum wage is not a living wage. And one of the situations that I think we could work on more would obviously be workforce development. As these young people across the state of Arkansas graduate high school, the national statistic is 68%, 32% go on to the next level of college. In the state of Arkansas, that figure is 55% of the students go directly into the workforce. Well, our issue seems to be that we don't have enough apprenticeship jobs, type internship jobs that we need to develop in the state of Arkansas to help these kids get into these more skilled jobs, where instead of starting at $10 an hour, they're starting at Wabash, West Rock, those type of corporations at $15 an hour with benefits. And benefits would obviously bring them up to around $18 an hour. This equates to about $37,000 a year as versus minimum wage, which brings you down around $20,000 a year. My question is, what's the state doing? What are y'all's opinion on workforce development, and how can you help us in our area foster those situations for our young people?
So the question is around workforce development. The minimum wage is not a living wage, as Craig said, and typical industries in Boone County and surrounding counties start at $15 plus benefits, takes you to about $18 an hour. And so the impact is significant. What is your perspective on increasing workforce development aids?
Mr. Campbell, thank you for that question, because you're right. And I think you're getting to more of the roots of the problem when it talks about the importance of a skilled workforce. That you don't have to go to the University of Arkansas or to Harvard or Yale, and you can go to Northwest Arkansas College, and within 3 years, you can be making $40,000+ a year with benefits. Skilled labor, plumbing, electrical, operating some of the new equipment and new machinery. And to look at our two-year colleges, and we've got one here, obviously we're here in North Arkansas College, we've got one in Mountain Home. How many do we have across the state, Breanne? You can tell.
There's 32, it's 2-year and 4-year.
But not all of them have the workforce development programs. And so what I really believe, Mr. Campbell, is that there's got to be collaborative efforts from government and the private sector here in Harrison, for example, where you've got local industry, you've got your local college, and you've got a legislative delegation that is working hand in hand and not looking to make knee-jerk reactions, but going through the motions and looking at the ins and outs and saying, how can we take our young folks that are getting ready to be going into the workforce, and if their interest is not in becoming more proficient with the Pythagorean theorem or French literature, that they want to focus on a specific trade, that can allow them to buy a house and start a family, and provide for that. And so that's going to take not just government allocating resources. That's going to take collaborative efforts on your private sector, Wabash, Pace, others. It's going to take your community college. And you're on the right. Is somebody that's 15 years old doesn't need to be making $15 an hour with benefits. My dad paid me $3 an hour. And then I tried to get him to pay me $5, and he made me do it the whole summer for free. They taught me a very valuable lesson. When you have no leverage, you should not try to negotiate. And so, you know, to think that a 15-year-old should be making the same as a 32-year-old mother with 2 kids working 60 hours a week to minimum wage is inherently not right.
That's fair. Ron, do you have any comments to add to the question about workforce development?
Well, the minimum, again, Bob, I apologize. It's easier to be there, but it's hard to hear the conversation. But I did hear us kind of go back to the minimum wage again, and still, of course, I completely agree with Congressman Womack. I think the market needs to determine all of that, and when we instigate that so high, it's going to take a whole lot, in my opinion, entry-level jobs away, and for people to be able to make a living wage, that's what we need to do. We need to be producing the jobs that are available to them, and then we need to have the training to get them in there. But we also have, in my opinion, we have to have some of the lower paid jobs for the younger folks to get a foot in the door to even start in the workforce.
And Ron, the question that Craig had to do with the support of the legislative group here for enhanced and increased workforce development programs, like Dr. Esther has mentioned with the Advanced Manufacturing Center.
Right.
The support that's needed.
Yeah. Actually, I just sent a support letter for that to the governor this morning. So
thank you very much. Okay. Yes, question?
It might be way off mark here, but does issue 3 affect anything on a county level? If we want to change something, just state level?
No, sir, just the state.
Issue 3, does it affect anything on a county level? The answer is no, it does not. It's only on state issues bringing for the Constitution. Okay? Yes, ma'am?
I know, Ms. Davis, you were on the school board, and I know Congressman Womack was a mayor of Rogers. What would you guys suggest for these teenagers and young adults? How should they get involved in the political process? What should they do?
Great question.
Well,
What's your counsel? So besides running for Jack's seat, what's your counsel?
Well, I always say there's no perfect path. I just sort of did what I was doing, and then if an opportunity presented itself, I did the next thing and took the next step. And I think it's important as a young adult, especially in my 20s, I was discouraged a lot. I was told that I didn't have the life experience yet. It wasn't my time. I needed to wait. Really specifically, when I went to run for school board, I was 26 years old and had 1 child at that time, and just had what you would think are respected people in the community, pillars of the community, really sort of corner me and say, like, what are you doing? You've never run a budget this big. You've never been a part of something like this. Why do you think that you are qualified to do something like this? And the truth was, I had a kid who was, in 5 years, going to be in our education system. And none of the people on school board had kids in our school system anymore. So we had people making educational decisions for my kids. And that was enough to qualify me. I had a child, I was worried about his education, and we're all citizens. You have to be a citizen to run for office. You don't have to have all these special qualifications. And I was just as qualified as the person next to me to make those decisions. So I think that just keeping in perspective that you are qualified, you are capable, and you don't have to know everything. You don't have to have a certain number of years of life experience under your belt to be able to just get out and put yourself out there and run for something. I think you just have to be passionate and believe in what you're doing and what you're talking about. And I think, that's really important. So there's no, secret recipe for that. It's just having the confidence to put your name on a ballot, which is a scary thing, and just moving forward and saying, this is right for me and this is why. And what I learned is I ran for school board 3 times and won every time, and then ran for state senate, and I was pregnant with my 4th child when I ran for state senate. And people said, how are you, you're a young mom, like why do you want to go to Little Rock? Why should we vote for you to even do something like that? But while I had people saying things like that to me, at the end of the day I won. And so there were enough people who had the same point of view, the same values as I did, and believed in me enough to send me to Little Rock to do this work. And so just remember that when people are, even people you respect, are maybe giving you some harsh feedback, that they don't determine your path and what you're capable of, and that you can push through and find that there's usually more than enough people on the other side that do believe in you and what you're doing.
Let me ask Ron, do you have some counsel for the folks here in the room today?
I didn't catch the whole question.
The question
Bob,
is, what sort of counsel would you give to the Youth Leadership Academy and the Boone County Leadership Institute, these 30 folks that are with us today, about being involved in government and politics and running for office?
Right. Well, of course, I was on the city council for 6 years, and then I served on the school board for 30 years. And that was the most, enjoyable time of things that I did. And then I was asked to run for the House, and I have been blessed to be able to serve 3 terms here. It's an experience that I think everybody. It's not for everybody, but anybody that's involved in any level. It doesn't have to be the state level, but if you can get involved in your local level, because the decisions, just like Jack said, the decisions that we make, and I've got children, grandchildren, and great grandchildren. And so the decisions that we make are going to continue on. But it's the most. I've worked for the general public in the service field for all my life, but this has probably been the most enjoyable thing that I've done. Not all the time enjoyable, but to be able to serve and feel like you're giving back. So, like I said, I think if they get involved at any level, it's something that we need to do because we need perspective from all different age groups.
Okay, Jack?
And excuse me, but I've got to run to another meeting, so I appreciate it. I'm sorry not there.
Ron, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We appreciate it. Jack, real quick.
To the young people again, both Breanne and Scott, we in Arkansas are called part-time legislators. We are expected to have means to support ourselves. Now, since the raise increase that they gave us several years ago, we receive ample compensation for what we do. However, Scott owns a business that would take a full-time endeavor from any normal person in itself. Breanne is a mother of 4 children, young children, which is a full-time job in itself. Both of them manage to do an excellent job as legislators because they are passionate about what they do. And if you're going to be in politics, be in it because it's passionate. Don't be in it because it's cool. You'll be the man, you'll be the woman, you get the license plate that lets you drive faster than you should.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome.
Don't be in it for that. Be in it for what you can do and what you can give back to those that elect you. That's the only reason to be in it, I assure you. There are a lot of people, probably there's very few that are have the means. Well, I guess there's several of us that have some money. Most of the people that serve in the legislature in both houses have another job that would keep anybody busy. So just keep that in mind. Do it because it's a passion, because you think you can make a difference.
Scott, what can you add to that?
Oh, I bet he's got
Not
some.
much.
Oh, go.
First of all, Sarah Davis didn't win. She won in a landslide. I mean, it was just, it was a mandate, if you will. I think, both Representative Fortner and Breanne have said it very well. I ran when I was 34 years old, and Jack might be the only one here today that had no prior elected office experience. Whether I was a city council, school board, and when I told you, I came out of nowhere. I'd never been active in politics, never run for anything, and when I came out and said I was going to run, people, and probably rightfully so, looked at me, I was crazy. My mom thought I was getting ready to embarrass myself and my family exponentially and begged me not to do it. When you've lost your mother's faith, that will make you sit and ponder and question whether you're making the right decision. But I'm stubborn, and I just went ahead and did it because I thought I did 12 years of owning a small business. And so I see James White back there. Not everybody had, probably paid attention to my race in 14, but it was brutal. And when I won, figured out very quickly, now you got to actually legislate and govern. And I got to Little Rock, and I was even embarrassed to ask a question because I felt every single person that I served with was at a much higher level than I was. They understood the simple rules, the Robert's Rules of Order, Mason's rules, how we operate our committees, how legislation's written and passed. I knew none of it. I was elected this year to serve as the Senate Majority Leader. And then I got my friend Breanne Davis' support, but she's still one of my best friends down there, which shows you how, you got these difficult situations and can still be good friends. Believe in yourself. Confidence is not a gift that others give to you. It is a gift that you give for yourself by going through difficult experiences and getting through those difficult things. And it gives you a baseline for believing in yourself. That is the most important thing. My motivation for running is because I'm me. And if somebody's going to be making decisions that are going to impact my life, I want to sit at the table.
That's fair. Passion and selfless service. Guys, we have to bring this to an end. We're past our 9 o'clock, and the three of the folks here, there are going to be a couple of folks that ask you to gear up in the back of the room for a quick conversation. Randy, Scott, Craig, and Joe, I think, are going to get you back here in the corner for a minute. I want to thank the three of you, Senator Davis, Senator Flippo, Representative Fortner, and certainly Representative McNair and Congressman Womack. Thanks so much for the service that you give us as citizens, in this case Boone County. Thanks for the work that you do. It's not easy many times. And I think this has given some insight. We hope that it's given insight to the community here, a great opportunity to engage with these elected leaders. And we want to do a shout out again to McDonald's for blueberry muffins, apple fritters, and cinnamon rolls. There's some left. This is it. We're going to take a break right now, and then the Boone County Leadership Institute and the Youth Leadership Academy is going to be back in here about 9:20. So let's give these folks a hand.